All right. Hi, everyone. Adam Katchmarchi with the National Drowning Prevention Alliance here, joined by my co-host, the infamous Laura Metro. We just got done hosting a full week at the 2020 National Water Safety Conference online. And, you know, Laura, COVID-19 is what really made us transition our conference online. You know, it ended up being an incredible week. The attendee comments were fantastic. We broke every single record in the books for NDPA, especially on attendance. So it was just an incredible feat. But you know, the comments people have made is it wasn't the same as face-to-face, but it was different and in some ways better, especially with the education. We were able to do so much virtual networking. But with COVID-19 comes other issues that we have to face. And you know, this was a resounding theme in the conference that we anticipate with children being at home from school, with schools being closed around the country, many parents forced to work from home. And even in, you know, such dire situations, a lot of daycares are closed. So now you have situations where parents who are working essential jobs, who do have to leave the house to go to work, are now left in a situation to find safe childcare and make sure their children are safe while they're at work. On our end, as the National Drowning Prevention Alliance, I know we're quite nervous that we potentially could see an increase in the drowning rate this year. We've heard anecdotal evidence of that already around the country, and a number of our friends over at IPSA and the pool service professionals are telling us that people are wanting their home pools open much earlier than before. They weren't able to go on spring break trips, and if that's the case and a lot of pools are opening earlier and parents are distracted, you know, if these layers of protection that we talk about all the time aren't in place and in good practice, you know, we could find ourselves in a really dangerous situation. So we wanted to host a special edition of the NDPA webinar series, and we're so happy to be joined by Naji. Did I say that correctly?
No, Naji.
Naji, I'm so sorry. Naji Kirby and Emily Samuel with Safe Kids Worldwide, both experts in various home safety areas. And, you know, because really this goes past water safety, Laura. It's not just water safety, it's all elements of home safety that parents need to be focused on. And even though the focus of our organization is drowning prevention, our friends over at Safe Kids really focus on every area of child safety. So we wanted to hold a discussion and really bring this to our audience. So Laura, anything I'm missing there in our introduction to this?
No, just I think the importance of bringing Safe Kids into the mix to talk about the overall preventable injury issues that we have facing us normally and now exponentially increasing. You know, again, we focus mainly on drowning prevention and water safety, but there are far more, you know, whether it's furniture tip overs or automotive, you know, there are many different areas here where kids are going to have far more opportunity to go use a car in the driveway as a jungle gym or whatever it may be, and just really trying to get this information out to have people be more aware so they can do the best they can to make their homes and these areas where their kids are safer, because we do know they're working from home. So this is a really challenging situation, and one requires, you know, sort of, as we've talked about we talk about in water safety, layers of protection. Well, the same thing goes for all of these other topics that we'll discuss today and explore with Safe Kids.
Yeah, so Laura, I think our audience knows you and I very well after this past week, probably too well. So I'd like to give an opportunity to our two friends at Safe Kids to introduce themselves. Emily, I'll start with you. Could you just give us a little bit about your background and your experience at Safe Kids?
Sure. So I work at Safe Kids Worldwide, and we are a nonprofit organization that works with families to make sure to keep kids safe in and around the home. So in the home, at play, and on the road for kids birth to 19 years of age. I am one of the program directors at Safe Kids Worldwide, and I lead our program strategy and development for our home and play safety programs. My background is in psychology and public health, and I have been at a state health department in Oklahoma. I've worked in the school district, and I've been at Safe Kids now in DC for 10 years.
Excellent. All right, I'm going to give it a shot again. Neji.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, my name is Neji Kirby, and I am the Senior Program Manager managing the pedestrian, bicycle, and rail safety education programs at Safe Kids. I am fairly new to Safe Kids as far as being an employee. I just started there in November, this past November, but prior to that, I worked at a local Department of Transportation focused on pedestrian and bicycle safety issues at schools in a county. So, but yeah, I'm happy to be at Safe Kids and so glad to be a part of this work.
Excellent. And thank you both for what you do and all the work that Safe Kids does. You know, we've worked with Safe Kids in a number of capacities over the past few years. And I am so fortunate enough to work with your colleague, Morag McKay, on the U.S. National Water Safety Action Plans. So I'm just so thankful that you both took time out of your day to join us and just to share your expertise with our audience. So I want to get to our first question. Since schools around the country are closed and parents have their kids really indefinitely at home at this point, safety is something obviously we really need to keep in mind. With that being said, what are some of the most overlooked safety items that parents should be aware of, but maybe they forget or overlook all the time? Either of you would like to start with that?
Sure. So this is definitely an overwhelming time with families balancing responsibilities at work and at home, and with, you know, kids doing virtual learning for school. And we all think about home safety in different ways. And for some caregivers, it might be making sure cleaning supplies or medicine is stored safely out of children's reach and sight, or ensuring that their TVs and furniture are anchored properly to prevent tip overs. For others, it might be keeping an eye on small toys and game pieces that are actually intended for older siblings, or remembering to gather essentials such as towels, soap, or bath toys before bath time so you don't have to leave young children unattended.
And we also want to make sure that kids are safe when they play outside, because we know that they are home and they're going to get outside to get fresh air, and it's good to get the stretch and exercise in as you have all of these active kids at home. So it's also, our website contains information about things like how to properly fit a helmet and other safety tips to keep your kids safe in and around cars, and whether they're on bike or on foot.
You know, Laura, you know, it's something that Emily said that I want to pick up on is the fact that, you know, sometimes when we talk about water safety, people immediately think about backyard pools. They think about open water environments, but they, in many times, don't think about the in-home water safety, such as making sure buckets are emptied when you're not using them, making sure, just like Emily said, when it comes to bath time safety, making sure that you have everything prepared before you leave your kids unattended in the bathtub. And, you know, drowning, just because it's in a bathtub, doesn't change the nature of drowning. It's fast and it's silent. And, you know, we've heard numerous cases in the past years of bathtub drownings that have just been tragic, where parents leave for just a few moments to go check on something, whether they forgot something, and they come back to a tragic situation. So I think that's, you know, really changing the nature of, you know, and this is stuff, you know, honestly, we should be practicing all the time. You know, whether our kids are indefinitely at home or they, you know, are in school, or, you know, whatever the case is. But, you know, in these situations, especially with parents having to work all day, you know, in many cases while at home, they're constantly distracted. And, you know, Laura, you and I have talked about this concept of breaking down the concept of supervision into active supervision and passive supervision. And I think any parent can relate to what we're talking about. You can't keep eyes on your kids in many cases all day long at all times. And, you know, you may know they're in the room back there, you know, doing something, doing schoolwork, playing, but your attention's somewhere else. And I just think that's so important to parents to think about these other safety prevention tips, you know, just beyond supervision.
Yeah, Adam, I was thinking about when Emily was sharing about the bathtub, we'll end up having a go through this after we're done in a chat in the transcript. And, some interesting things we could bring up are sort of some hacks, if you want to call it that people could do in their homes. So like you're saying, maybe they wouldn't normally do this, but set up all that bath stuff, have a stack of towels, have those things in the bathroom ready to go, and make that part of your new routine. Maybe you redo the kids' play area, and you put those bigger toys higher up so the littles can't get to them, or you take the little pieces away entirely unless you're around. Maybe there's some other ways we can help people figure out how to set up their houses right now, so they are, when they do leave the room for a conference call or something and they've got them in an area that's safe, maybe we can think of some more of those kinds of things throughout the conversation too, to give them those ideas to set up their home. And the last thing I was going to say too is the paint buckets. A lot of people are doing home improvement projects right now, and they have things out. They have the large paint buckets out, things like that. That is also another drowning hazard that most people often overlook.
Laura, something I was thinking about while you were responding is the fact that, my first question, I kind of wish I would have rephrased it now, because, when we look at the drowning statistics, our highest rate for drowning is in the 1 to 4 year olds. It's, drowning is their leading cause of accidental injury death. And then you hit that 5 to 9 year old range, and it really dips down to one of the lowest drowning rates of the lifespan. And, what research has found, which this is not, there's no definite answers to why that cause is just yet, but, we've made assumptions that it's because the older kids, know safety, they know they can't do things without their parents. So really, especially, it's really not just schools being closed, but it's daycares, because, these are the kids that maybe would be in daycare or preschool, and not necessarily in your K-12 schools, and now that are home all day while you're working, and these kids maybe don't listen to direction as well as their older siblings do. They're a little bit more adventurous, they're curious about the world, and that's what we find in a number of the drowning cases. Our friend Kelly Hilbig posted just with the Jack Hilbig Memorial Foundation, posted just something that just really hit me hard this week, which was the fact that she put that she couldn't save Jack from his own curiosity, and that's what she feels led to his drowning. And I think that probably resounds across the board with accidental injuries in children. So we talk a lot about layers of protection, and layers of protection are barriers, learn to swim lessons, parental supervision, making sure the toys are picked up around the pool area, making sure if you have a cover around your pool, making sure the gate is latched and closed. And we can go on and on with that list with proper flotation and all these other things. But I'm curious, from our friends at Safe Kids, does that concept of layers of protection work with other home safety topics? And if it does, how I guess, what would be the recommended layers you would recommend to parents?
So you're right, similar to the recommendations for water safety, supervision is key, but there are also changes we can make in our homes and just to our behavior and routines to help prevent unintentional injuries, especially when it comes to young children. As you said, they are very curious and they're creative and they like adventure, and they have a tendency to surprise us. And sometimes the surprises are good. They learn a new word, they start walking, they start learning how to write their name. But sometimes those surprises can be alarming, and we realize that we need to make a change in our home. And so one of the things that we say at Safe Kids is, instead of waiting for your child to learn a new skill and realizing that they can climb up on a chair and reach a countertop where you may keep medicine, anticipate what your child may be able to learn next. And so always keep safety on your child-proofing checklist, and you'll have to make those modifications as your child grows older. And so, some of those behaviors may include making sure medicine is kept up and away, or installing safety devices as an added layer of protection. And so for one example is, right now we're all bringing additional medicine as well as hand sanitizers, cleaning and disinfectant products into the home. And young kids are often eye level with items on tables or counters, under the kitchen and bathroom sinks where families may regularly keep these items. So it's important to remember to keep these items in their original containers, out of children's reach and sight. And you can also use a cabinet lock or a cabinet latch as an added layer of protection.
We used to say when my son was younger, Adam knows my son well, that he was like a wrecking ball, and we would call it low-hanging fruit. So literally anything that was within like here on him was fair game. It didn't matter how heavy it was. Like, I mean, you would have thought that, the surfaces had nothing on them at all, like nothing, because anything within his hands, we moved up, because it was, again, it was fair game, and it was going to get broken, thrown, stepped on, whatever it was. And so we would always say, move the low-hanging fruit, move the low-hanging fruit. That was like this common thing, like, well, it was low-hanging fruit, but it's really like you're saying, anything on that eyesight. And what's super interesting is, if the best way to figure out how to do this is get down to where they see, and you'll see what they see. And it's not the same as what you see from high up. It's a completely different angle. And, you might catch something that's behind something that you didn't realize that teeny little ball from the gumball machine was behind the planter, or, and I just remember that because, it was fair game. It was like anywhere you could see. And I think the more that we can help people, like you're saying, sort of child-proof / baby-proof their home. And then with the older kids, and I'm saying the school-age kids, that is when we're getting into this territory of outside, when we're getting into the bikes, and we're getting into the ripsticks, and we're getting into, the hoverboards, and that is what they're all doing right now, or frankly, like your gym equipment, like that is a jungle gym to a kid, a boxing bag. That is something to hang on and swing on, like these things. I think if you're mindful and conscious and walk through your home, like sort of with a childlike mind, I think you can help yourself sort of do the best you can to make your home safer when they're not supervised. Because we have to assume there's time they're not supervised. We have to assume that now. So if you look at a room and say, I'm not going to be in here, I'm not going to be here for 20 minutes. What can they get into? What's the problem? And I agree so much with the, I've probably spent more money on cleaning products. I don't even, and then you have this the scarcity mentality where it's like, I only have one more bottle of laundry detergent left. It's like, so you have a whole bottle, but so there's excess cleaning products and all this stuff that's in your house and just around. And I think, the best we can do is really continue to remind people to really just sort of refocus their homes so they feel like, other than being padded cells, so they feel like they are, safer when they're not watching.
And I think too, Laura, going on the outside play and the bikes, they're on scooters, all of that, the one thing that you can do is just to always make sure that their helmet and their gear fits properly and that they wear it all the time. Because you're not necessarily going to be, but that they know how to put their helmet on correctly. They know the importance of that. And as you're home and families are taking walks together or riding bikes together, this is a good time to reiterate some of those safety tips with them, and also making sure the little ones know what they're doing just in case an adult isn't around, and making sure that they're comfortable, if they're walking or biking by themselves.
Totally agree. And something else people need to know about helmets, and again, I keep bringing up Clay, but he's really injury prone, guys. But is that once you've sustained an impact on a helmet, it's done. You need to get a new one, and so, that's an important thing for people to understand too. Now, a little bit here and there, Adam, we spoke a lot the past 3 weeks, getting ready for this conference, and he was usually streaming somewhere, and I was like, okay, Clay almost got a concussion because Matt, my husband and son, were out on the bike and they were going on some trails, and he tipped over, and we said, it's time for a new helmet. But we only really know that because my husband's a biker, we ski, so we're aware of that you know, they are expensive in some cases. I think there are lesser expensive ones, but there's also like maybe I think you can also go into your Nextdoor app or any neighborhood communications that you have listservs and ask people, hey, do you have anything laying around, any sporting equipment that hasn't been used or anything laying around that we can use? I think that's another sort of trash or treasure thing that you can do to get, you know, I can't tell you how many things my kids grew out of and never used, you know, whether it was sporting equipment or something like that. So maybe looking into that as well as a way to get some helmets and things, but to know that those helmets, they sustain that impact and that's what they're made for. And then we need another one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes too that if they have a local Safe Kids Coalition, they can reach out to them for resources, the same resources and or potentially bike helmets. So that's also a resource for local communities.
And for anyone watching, we will include links to the Safe Kids website, of course, and all of this information for you guys to contact your local Safe Kids and see what those resources are available and get involved. I mean, there's going to be people that might not even know about Safe Kids and discover the depth and breadth of this organization and get involved locally. I mean, that's really, really where you can get that information out, is to get involved with your local Safe Kids.
You know, Laura, something kind of resonated with me there. You know, one of my best friends, I don't think she would have an issue with me saying this because I don't have children myself, but her daughter, her first child, was not a very risky child, did not really take a lot of risk, was very cautious just as in her nature. And she had a son about 4 years later, and he is just, you know, aging out of the toddler phase right now. And she said to me, she called me, we were actually FaceTiming. She was in the kitchen. She's like, oh, I have to go in the kitchen and, you know, fill my cup of coffee up. And she went to do one other thing in the kitchen. And then I hear the phone drop and I hear her go, oh my gosh, get down. And in that short period of time, he somehow got on top of the kitchen table and was like dancing without his diaper on the kitchen table. And I mean, that's, to me, you know, who's not a parent, that would scare me because just how quickly that happens. And, you know, I kind of related that to what happens in drowning, where, you know, everyone thinks that, oh, the child's going to be able to call out for help if they're injured or they're in trouble. And in many cases, they're not able to call out, especially in a drowning situation. That's one of our biggest misconceptions we fight is, don't just think that your child's going to be able to call out for help, because in many cases, they're not going to be able to. It's a life and death fight for survival while they're in that drowning incident. You know, Laura, you and I talked a lot over the past week with our audience at the virtual conference about the idea that these are typical prevention efforts right now. You know, a lot of community gatherings. You know, I know Safe Kids and a lot of hospitals do car seat checks. And you know, the typical way that we've gone about many of our prevention campaigns is not possible right now because we're all stay at home. And I'm interested to throw this next question out of, you know, what recommendations do you have for parents who kind of maybe weren't prepared for this? Maybe they find themselves in this situation where their child's at home and they, you know, can't go get that education. You know, we're really leaning obviously on the virtual education, but what recommendations do you have for a parent watching this who says, oh my gosh, I didn't think about some of this stuff. I need to go get, you know, some information or go get or prepare myself at this point?
I think we all know that when you start thinking about the health and safety of a child, there is a lot to think about when you look at everything from nutrition and wellness to injury prevention. And so I think for home safety and keeping kids safe in and around the home in this particular context that we're living right now is to take some time this week to look at your home, as Laura said a little earlier, from your child's point of view and start making a few changes. There are different things to consider based on your child's age and their development level. And we have checklists and how-to videos that offer families tips on how to keep kids safe. A good place to start is with our home safety checklist that guides families on how to keep kids safe room by room. Or you can also use some of our new resources that we've developed that highlight how to prevent injuries during the coronavirus pandemic. And this information can also be shared with friends and family who are helping with childcare during this time. You may have grandparents or friends who may not have young children or haven't had young children in their home for a while. And so it's always helpful to give a little reminder and say, you know, my child is really curious, likes to get into things. And so here are a couple of safety tips maybe you can try out.
And I think too, something else parents might not think about, and I think Laura, you mentioned this earlier, is making sure that they keep their vehicles locked and trunks closed and key fobs out of reach. You know, kids as young as 2, like you were saying, they're playing outside, they see the car in the driveway or in the garage, and they see it as a jungle gym or a place to play hide and seek. And so you want to make sure that that they're not able to do that, because unfortunately they can get in, but then they can't always get out. And then in addition to that, we're taking drives to get essential items. So you want to take a moment to look around your car before you leave your driveway or your garage, just to make sure the kids aren't outside playing around it.
That's such a great point. You know, again, that's the first thing I thought of was like hide and go seek, you know, I mean, that's a fantastic hiding spot. And these things, you know, I think we could tell people to, you know, put a little key thing on their garage door, wherever they keep the keys, and keep them up, keep them high. You know, there's just it's so, one of the things that I think we hear, I know you guys hear it, and we hear it, and it's the worst part, I think, one of the worst parts about working in preventable injury is usually it could have been like one little thing that they could have done that would have prevented it. And that's what they beat themselves up for the rest of their lives. You know, it's like just a quick little thing to move the keys up, you know, but if you don't know, you don't know. And also, like you were talking about, Emily, you know, as parents, you know, you are bombarded with what the world thinks you should be doing, you know, with your child. So I wouldn't say there's any cool about COVID, but the only cool thing is about COVID is I don't think anybody is shaming anyone for their kids being on too many screens anymore. Now everyone's like, it's fine. So that mom shaming is done. But you know what, I was thinking there, you know, with Clay, you were talking about your friend's son. I mean, I'm not going to lie, about a month ago, we were in IKEA and I said, get down, because he had climbed up the scaffolding in the warehouse part, and he's 12. Okay. So literally people are like, but what I was thinking about with that and what we've seen with him is energy. Okay. I mean, they're saying stay inside. We don't want him riding his bike alone on the streets. My husband has his own business, is trying to save it. I'm up here doing 5 days of water safety live, you know, and, you know, where is he supposed to go? What's he supposed to do with all this? And I think I don't know specifically, but I do know that there's definitely some stuff that's going up on YouTube, that's going up online, you know, exercise, fun for kids. Think of ways that you can get that energy out. It doesn't necessarily mean it's with you. You know, if you can, Clay and I have been just going on like a 1.5 mile walk. We've been trying to every day, but like that doesn't even do it for him. I mean, so I think if there's ways that you can look for where it's not you, you know, there's something else out there, but you kind of make that part of your day. Like, hey guys, we've got to have some kind of energy outlet here. We've got to have we got to sort of pretend a little bit like it's a rainy day. And yes, we want to get outside, but we can't really get outside the same way we used to be able to. So I think thinking of inventive and creative ways to do that, because that is going to stop that child from wanting to climb up that bookcase to get that toy if they're just tired and want to watch. So, you know, it's like, I think we've been challenged in so many different ways with COVID to look at life differently and to operate differently. But if I'm looking at priorities as a parent, right now, the nutrition is less of a priority than making sure the home is safe. That's the first priority. And then we can get to, you know, the healthy cooking or whatever it is. And I'm not saying that's not important, but I'm saying that I think we have to prioritize this. And as these summer months come, and it's already happening in Texas, we heard people having 80, 90 degree days, that outside safety is going to be absolutely critical, just around the perimeter of your home.
And I think you can also engage some of your older kids in in safety. And so, you know, have them help you sort the toys. And if they have younger siblings, make sure that they're looking for small pieces and they have a special place for those where their younger sibling can't get to it. Or a really good activity for families to do right now is do a fire escape plan. So check the smoke alarms in the home, make sure that they're working. Work with your kids to create a fire escape plan and identify 2 ways out of every room and make sure those exits are clear. And then practice a home fire drill. Practice one in the morning and one at night so everyone knows what to do in case there's a fire, and make sure that any adults or children that need someone to help them out of the home has that help. And so we have some other activities that families can do together that are interactive that will help kids refocus on something, but it'll also teach them something about safety as well.
You know, we can also, sorry, Adam, I know I'm talking too much. We can also put together a little section on our website that's maybe sort of like a curriculum, like a home safety day, you know, where we have all of these kids' materials, and we kind of, I mean, I'm happy to do that and break that up and have all these kids' materials where, you know, with these parents homeschooling and stuff, this fits right into a ton of different curriculum areas, whether it's science with fire, whether it's physical activity, you know, it really, you know, with those things, we can sort of reframe some of the ways that we're putting things out there in terms of a day that you can do with your kids, you know, and do that with all these kids that are home. Sorry.
No, you're fine, Laura. Something I want to add in here is, and Emily made a great point with like the fire escape plans right now. And Laura, this is something you and I hit on constantly. And it's, yes, the prevention. Yes, we want you to enjoy the activities. And I don't think anyone on this panel or anyone in injury prevention would say, don't go and enjoy time with your family right now. You know, we are, you know, at home in this unique situation. And I think one of the bright spots is this allows a lot of families to maybe who are, you know, just so much wrapped into the hustle and bustle of life, to really the opportunity to spend some quality time together, to go out, you know, hiking or biking, and, you know, keep practicing those social distancing pieces. But, you know, Laura, it's something that, you know, resounds with you and what you do with CPR Party and with Clay's accident, a number of years ago, is, and I think, again, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think everyone would probably agree with this, is as much as we spend time talking about preventing injuries, we are all realistic to the fact that injuries and accidents will happen. And part of that has to be the conversation of being prepared for that. And when those accidents or injuries do happen, having a plan in place, having the training in place where you can quickly respond, because, you know, we obviously don't want a tragedy on our hands. We want to try to minimize that, and having a first aid kit, having the fire escape plan in place, having the training, CPR, knowing how to call 911, those elements are so important even now, because, again, you know, we do everything we can for prevention, but if an accident does happen, the next thing is, how do you respond to that to get the best possible outcome?
I will have to grab onto that real quick and say that for the, now the conference is over, but for the conference I did, which was really difficult because I usually do it in person, but I did a whole thing on how to teach kids about emergencies and how to teach them CPR. And with that, it comes with a ton of different printables and things like that, and ways to get them engaged. But like you were saying, Emily, to engage the older siblings, they love to be the hero. And they're not afraid. And, you know, I would say you're my 4-minute crew. You know, you guys need to be the people that are keeping everybody going, you know, keeping the heart beating before the paramedics come. You know, you need to be a fireman and you know, and they're like, okay, you know, and little things like a keypad to show kids how to dial 911. Now it's a little bit different now with iPhones. Like, they know they can, you know, but I think that's information. I also have a curriculum, and it's not, I mean, it's very, very basic here, that have on our website that will allow people just to do these really easy, fun, there's like activity, you know, sheets to really talk with them about CPR, because there's countless stories of when kids have been at home with parents and they've been the ones to call 911. And really all you have to do is tell them once. They're not like us. They don't think the same way we do in those situations. You know, they're actually a lot more calm, and they're like, I gotta, you know, and they do what you've told them to do. And so I think that's another, thank you, Adam, for bringing that up, because, you know, that was really after Clay's drowning and his survival, I looked for where was, you know, our place in this. And I felt like, for me, my most effective place was the highlight of CPR and our friend doing CPR, not even knowing it. And really that being the doctor saying, there is no other explanation for why your son is cognitively okay. He was in a coma for 2 days. It was an hour and a half before he saw the inside of an ER. You know, the only thing that we can attribute to this is that somebody was doing CPR prior to the paramedics arriving. And, you know, I believe it wholeheartedly, especially when I got into this space and I knew what the stats were around it. So that's, you know, why we do what we do, and trying to give that education to kids first is critical. And you can do it in a way that's fun and not scary.
And little kids, especially, I guess kids of all ages, like being the helpers. They like being the person that knows how to keep their family safe. And so if you're modeling good behavior as a parent or caregiver, and if you're not, they'll remind you. We have great stories from the community where kids are reminding parents and caregivers to make sure that they're wearing their bike helmet before they go out on their bike, or they buckle up in the car before, you know, we leave the driveway. And so there's some really good opportunities and teachable moments in this space that the whole family can get engaged and help out in.
You know, I think one of the other unique opportunities we have with COVID, which, you know, I think Laura touched a little bit on during the conference, is you know, so many kids are being homeschooled right now, you know, virtually, right? And I know I've talked to a couple parents, and I think one of our presenters mentioned it during one of our conference webinars, was the fact that, you know, her daughter was getting done with her homeschooling in like 30 minutes in the day. And so like parent, you know, this whole idea of, oh, kids are busy for 6-7 hours a day in front of their computer learning, in many cases that may not be the actual situation. They may be able to get through with their schoolwork, you know, first thing in the morning, and then have the rest of the day. And for parents who are trying, and this is where I think the opportunity comes into place, because with the resources from Safe Kids, from CPR Party, from the American Red Cross, from NDPH, from all these different organizations that focus on preparedness and especially child safety, to have your child learn a little bit more about safety. And because there's so many fun activities out there that it's not boring. You know, there are I know so many projects. Build your own first aid kit, you know, from things around the home, you know, just small things like that that can be done that, you know, keep kids busy, keep them learning, but also get them better prepared for safety and make them part of the process. You know, so many times our vice president of NDPA is really big on, you know, water safety isn't just with the parents, it's with the kids too. Kids are smarter than what we give them credit for, and giving them the opportunity to actually learn about safety. And then, you know, it kind of turns into, you know, you mentioned bicycle helmet safety, but it's kind of like the reminder of like, put your seatbelt on. You know, I still find myself at my age reminding my parents to, hey, we're driving, and that dinging is reminding you to put your seatbelt on. So this could actually start, you know, in many ways, given this opportunity, a generational change of getting kids more involved in that safety conversation much earlier.
I remember coming home and throwing away my parents' cigarettes. They did not like that. So that was when the anti-smoking first started, and they started bringing it into the schools. And I remember that so well, you know. And I think, you know, you're talking about Blake Collingsworth, who is his son Joshua passed away from drowning in their backyard pool, and they do the book Josh the Otter. And he always says, like, you know, that early education piece is so critical. And, you know, I always like to say too, and people like to say that sort of, you know, your last layer of protection is that child standing at the edge of a body of water saying, Josh told me not to swim without a buddy. You know, that's one of my favorite things is, you know, that is the last layer of protection. And the other one that came about was also blame is not a layer of protection, you know, and that I think is important. We're not at Safe Kids or NDPA or any other organization. The last thing we're doing is preaching to people. All we want is for people to be informed, and we want to help. That's it. Because because we see the stats and we see what goes on, and we don't want this to happen. And I think that during this time where people are so open in so many ways, because they had to be, they're open to new ideas, to virtual things they were never open to before. I think that we have a captive audience that is willing to hear what we have to say, and people aren't as busy as they were before. I mean, my husband and I were saying we noticed how just the lack of the amount of driving that we're not doing anymore, like the amount of time that saves in our day is really incredible when you don't have it anymore. And to realize like, interesting. And it's just forcing us to rethink things in so many different ways. But what I think Adam and I saw during this, and I'm sure you guys have seen this in your meetings at work at Safe Kids, is it's across the board. Everyone is thinking sort of, I don't want to say higher level, but more creatively, because we have to. And I think some really interesting things are going to come out of this, but the captive audience that we finally have, I mean, you've never seen people thinking more about prevention. When did anyone know about flattening the curve and pandemic? And, so like prevention is on people's minds. And I think it's really, for those of us in this space, I'm excited for us in a weird way, because we have an opportunity to really get out there and get top of mind for people. And, to have these resources that Safe Kids provides and have been providing for so many years, it's really, I think this is going to be an amazing time for us to be able to get in front of this and get in front of people.
Absolutely. So as we kind of come to the end of this webinar, I want to spend the last few moments talking about the resources that are available to parents that focus on child safety. Where can they go to learn more what Safe Kids offers? And, Laura and I will talk a little bit about where they can find more water safety information.
Sure. Well, we provide local programming to families through our coalitions, and you can find a coalition near you by going to the Safe Kids website. And while our community outreach activities currently are suspended due to the pandemic, you can still go to www.safekids.org to find all the resources for parents and educators to be able to use, to download their how-to videos. Our research is on there. There's blogs from our experts. So you can find a variety of things there. And we're also active on social media. So you can find us on Facebook, Safe Kids Worldwide, Twitter @SafeKids, and Instagram @SafeKidsWorldwide.
Well, and what I love about the social media aspect is it can be presented to you not just in one thing, in one, day, going to the website, but just constantly those small reminders about safety during the day. And, even for, I think all of us, I could probably say this, that, because I focus so much on water safety that when I think about other safety things, I'm like, oh, I didn't really think about that. And just those small reminders can really, make a huge difference. So I know, Laura, at CPR Party, you have a number of resources available. And then NDPA, we have the simple steps for safer water on our website that you can follow, especially around backyard pools right now, and in the home safety with bucket drownings, bathtub safety, toilet safety, just those little things. And, I know Amazon's a little bit slower than they once were, and we got really used to. I had a little, panic attack when I opened up Amazon the other day, and I'm like, what do you mean I can't get it by tomorrow? It's like, what do you mean I have to wait 2 weeks for my order to come? I know, right? But there are things, there are still places you can get items in your home that'll help with home safety that maybe don't take an extra trip to the store. Laura, do you want to talk about any resources you have available at CPR Party?
I think like I said, what we have is the which we'll put up live now that the conference over is the How to Teach Kids CPR plus all the printables and then the curriculum. But I was going to also say that I think it's a great idea. You said that there was on Safe Kids room by room, like maybe each day you take a room and the kids go around. It's almost a game to go through and see, I think even if if we put some of this information out there by room, it could be an interesting way to kind of approach, looking at the home safety. And I wanted to also ask Naji, okay, got it, about if you have any more ideas for outside. Like, what if someone doesn't have a fenced in yard? We know people should be locking the doors of their cars and keeping their key fobs up. They need to take the time to make sure that the kids' equipment is appropriate and the kids know how to put their equipment on appropriately. I'm trying to think of other areas on the outside that we might be able to mention, on this webinar.
Sure. I think that you could also kind of outside, it's understanding the boundaries. And this is why I was saying, when you're out with your kids, this is a good time to kind of set some of those boundaries, is how far you want them to go, how far they're allowed to go. Because we're also still practicing the social distancing, even when we're outside. So we want, they need to have a good understanding about that. But even playing in the driveway or in front of the house, but also you have your decks outside, kids are outside on decks. So you want to make sure even that those spaces are clear of things and there's no loose items or things that kids might actually come upon as well.
Excellent. Well, and I encourage anyone watching this webinar, even if you don't have children like me at home, who share this information with your family, with your friends that have children. It all takes a village to make this work and to keep kids safe and to see our numbers of unintentional injuries drop around this country. And I think that's the thing, Laura, you and I spend so much time focused on drowning prevention and water safety, but when you look at unintentional injuries, because, drowning is just one piece of our unintentional injury statistics that we see. And one thing that I always remind people, as a researcher myself, I get sometimes in tune to the statistics. And what I love about our connection with Families United to Prevent Drowning and what we do at NDPA is it's a solemn reminder that it's not just a statistic, it's a life that was lost and a family that was impacted. So it has such more of a ripple effect. And when you see those numbers of unintentional injuries and, that go beyond drowning, it's just an incredible number of people that are affected by, unintentional injuries every year. So the more that we can do to prevent these and the more people can do to learn during this time and keep their families safe, I think really cannot just flatten the curve on COVID, but really make an effect on what we see in unintentional injury prevention.
Well, also in this space where, people, we are so out of control of what is going on these days, right? But this is something as a parent you can control. And you know what? I'm here to say that, we do keep an illusion sometimes of control, and just sometimes knowing that there are some things that we can prevent and some things that we can stop, helps to get kind of through your day, and in general, that was something for me after Clay's accident, was just the very raw realization that accidents do happen. Bad things happen to good people. And there was no more denial there on that one. And, for parents these days with so much out of our control, I think it is very comforting to know that these are some things that are, and we can go ahead and do these things. And it's demonstrative too. I think it's important in that sense as well.
Yeah, and one thing we always say at Safe Kids, we touched on this throughout our conversation today, but we know kids are going to get bumps and bruises and scrapes and scratches, and we expect that because they're kids and they're exploring their world, and we want them to do that. But we're really trying to help parents do and families do is prevent the more serious injuries and death that could happen from an unintentional injury. I apologize. So really, there's some simple steps that every family can take, whether you're a parent or a caregiver that's helping out during this time. And I think all of the injury prevention organizations right now are trying to get that information out to families and the community.
And that was the last thing I was going to say, Adam, on what you said about share this with your friends. Don't forget about your friends' kids that are teenagers or college kids, babysitter age. they need to know too. It's super important, you know? So really sharing this information, it really isn't just geared toward parents. This is geared toward really anyone that is around children for any reason whatsoever. So I think that's also, you know, the information is valid to really all parties.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I thank all of you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know we're all working from home, and you know that sounds so relaxing, but I know each one of us are keeping a very busy schedule. And yeah, Laura, don't shake your head. No, I know you've had a busy schedule. um, but I thank you all, and I'll just open up. If anyone has any final comments, we'd welcome them.
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Adam, and you, Laura, for having Neji and I on the webinar today. We appreciate it, and we had a great time. Thank you.
Thank you. And Neji, Emily, thank you for taking your time, and thank you for all the work that you do at Safe Kids and keeping children safe around the country. And I know Laura and I will be joining you at home for a few more webinars during the COVID crisis. We are going to really use this opportunity to provide further education on drowning prevention and water safety and other unintentional injuries. So thank you. Make sure everyone's staying at home, stay safe and well, and we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar.